Azerbaijan, a landlocked country in the South Caucasus, neighboring Russia to the north, Iran to the south, Turkey and Armenia to the west, and Georgia to the northwest, as well as the Caspian Sea to the east. Officially called the Republic of Azerbaijan, it proclaimed its independence on the 30th of August 1991, shortly before the dissolution of the USSR in the same year. A unitary dominant party semi-presidential republic, having Ilham Aliyev as the president since 2003, is famous for its rich nature, including mud volcanoes, gas, high mountains, as well as its history and culture. Has especially obtained fame after hosting Eurovision Song Contest in 2012, European Games in 2015, and Formula One since 2016. Having an interesting historical background with clashes for independence and wars, Azerbaijan was able to form its first ever republic as the Russian Empire lost its power in the early 20th century. Officially called the Azerbaijan Democratic Republic, it declared its independence on the 28th of May, 1918 in Tbilisi, Georgia. The 28th of May is still celebrated as the Day of Independence in Azerbaijan. The newly formed republic faced challenges in almost all spheres. A national army was set up for protecting the territorial integrity, a task which it fulfilled by restoring sovereignty in a number of territories. The founding fathers of the Azerbaijan Democratic Republic, Mamad Amin Rasulzadeh, Fatali Khan Koyski, Nasib Yusuf Beyli, and others, were committed to building a parliamentary republic in a country with a population with a strong Eastern mentality and tradition. As well as being the first democratic republic in the Muslim East, it tried to increase its participation in the international system of international relations, however, lost its independence by the military intervention of Russia in April 1920. Having consolidated its power within Russia, the Bolsheviks started collecting former parts of the empire and chose Azerbaijan as the number one target in the South Caucasus, as they desperately needed to collect Baku's massive oil deposits. The establishment of the Soviet Socialist Republic of Azerbaijan was announced on the 28th of April 1920. The whole control over the country was transferred to the Temporary Revolutionary Committee and the Council of National Commissars of the ASSR. The head of the council was Nariman Narimanov. The Bolsheviks included only Azerbaijanis into the Temporary Revolutionary Committee and the Council of National Commissars to be on the alert of any national revolts. Nevertheless, the real government was already established in February of 1920 and focused on the Communist Party of Azerbaijan, which worked collaboratively with the occupants. The Communist Party of Azerbaijan was a fundamental part of the Communist Party of Russia and reported directly to Moscow. The leadership of the party was composed of Russians, Armenians, and Georgians, and in fact, the activity of the Communist Party of Azerbaijan was fully controlled by Anastas Ivanovich Mikoyan, an Armenian Bolshevik. Therefore, the Armenians as well as other nations played a great role in the destruction of the state and its structures of the Democratic Republic of Azerbaijan. The revolutionary committees were established in all the regions of Azerbaijan, and they were granted expanded powers for the destruction of the state structures of the Azerbaijan Democratic Republic. Bolshevik regime carried out horrible repressions in Azerbaijan in the 1930s in order to prevent further strengthening of resistance movement and national awakening. Dashnak gangsters, primarily Armenian, killed tens of thousands of Azerbaijanis in result of false and fake investigations under the name of courts, exposures of public enemies, and criminal cases. 29,000 worthy persons were subject to repression. At that time, Azerbaijan lost such rare intellectuals and thinkers such as Hussein Javid, Mikhail Mushfik, Ahmed Javad, Salman Mumtaz, Ali Nazmi, Taghi Shahbazi, and others. The intellectual potential of people and its prominent persons were murdered Azerbaijani people could not recover for years from this hard blow. At that period, Armenians also undertook mass measures against West Azerbaijanis. In result, tens of thousands of Azerbaijanis flee their native land, West Azerbaijan. The harsh regime continued working intensively throughout the Soviet Union's lifespan. However, the murders which happened during the repressions were not happening anymore. Instead, the Soviet government was trying to avoid national holidays and traditions, by disallowing the population to celebrate and make events on those holidays. Shortly after the fall of the Soviet Union, when Azerbaijan declared its independence in 1991, the country was already involved in an ethnic war with Armenia over Nagorno-Karabakh, an enclave in the territory of Azerbaijan. The country was also facing economic devastation caused by Soviet dissolution and the internal political chaos. However, Azerbaijan was able to economically grow even though the occupied lands were not given back and the war was frozen, especially between 2005 and 2007. Azerbaijan made great progress in the economical field by 26.4% of growth, 34.5% of growth, and 25.0% of growth, respectively. People were given more freedom. Many fields saw great reforms, and democracy was the main regime of the state. However, people in Azerbaijan still tended to like the communist system and talk about how they missed the Soviet Union. Thus, by taking into account all of these actions made by the Soviet Union, a question comes to mind. How could the Azerbaijani nation like the Soviet regime after all of these terrible events? To find an answer to this question, public opinion should have been obtained. In order to get an answer to this question, we decided to interview a few people. Several questions were asked, such as how the Soviet Union treated the Azerbaijanis, why do people tend to like the regime although there were massive violations of human rights, what has been different between the Soviet and the democratic regime, and what is your personal opinion on the matter. We interviewed an older couple who did not want to be filmed nor recorded. They talked about how in the Soviet Union, people were granted with a job and a house right after they finished their education, and how beneficial it was to live under the communist system. They stated that there were no violations of human rights or whatsoever, and everyone lived happily under the Soviet state. In addition, they talked about how the current system is decent as people can now travel abroad, and Azerbaijan has its own flag and its own anthem. The couple stated that they like both of the systems and do not have negative opinions against any of them. After interviewing older people, we decided to approach a relatively younger person with a lot of information and knowledge about the Soviet Union. We were lucky to find a person who met our criteria. It was the librarian at the International School of Azerbaijan, Mr. Hazar Novruzov. We asked him broader questions, including both the Soviet Union and the democratic state, and he answered all of our questions.
In general, we were like a kind of colonized nation during the Soviet times because they destroyed our independent republic in 1920, and they built a new system, completely new. It was much harsher at the beginning years, especially the harsh times came just before the World War II and the repression years, Stalin's repression years, then our involvement in the World War. They lost a lot of things. The repression, targeted, as most people say, that targeted the intellectual people of Azerbaijan, those who might lead the community, the nation upwards. Those people, the forward thinkers, intellectual people, they were the victims of the process. So it was all against the, let's say, Xenophon of Azerbaijan to destroy this nation. So the Azerbaijani people didn't have equal rights, although all the law system did deny it. Like the highest posts in the government were taken by Russians or Armenians, non-Azeris. They run this kind of policy during the Soviet times. So it's a big problem in human rights. Local people being out of the leading positions. It kind of colonialism. And a version of colonialism. The textbooks also, as we are in a school atmosphere here, I saw the Soviet textbooks. They had history books, the history of the USSR, the history of Azerbaijan, was given just a little bit space. So the geography of Azerbaijan, I think it wasn't taught at schools, at secondary schools. The USSR history, I remember our teacher said, these are kind of biased. They changed facts. Destroyed archives also, I hear. They sent special people from Armenia or Russia. They secretly destroyed archives, especially. I heard it on TV that during the 1950s, 60s, some special people destroyed the archives because to cover to hide the repression years, even the Armenian activities in Azerbaijan, let's say the prohibited history of the repression years, it was not highlighted much enough at school books. So I grew up unaware of all the facts, and so they didn't have access to real history. So they distorted the history of Azerbaijan. I'm sure that they said it's a part of a kind of cut from Iran or somewhere else. They denied our Turkic identity.
Mr. Hazar Novruzov also stated that the biggest effect of communism in today's Azerbaijan is that the nation became less religion practicing, and the older generation grew unaware of the negative actions carried out by the Soviet government, which therefore resulted in high degree of appreciation of the communist system by the Azerbaijanis. He also said that the new Republic of Azerbaijan enjoys independence and economic growth, which shows that it is indeed more appreciated by the population. In addition, the new generation is being raised by learning the true Azerbaijani history and the national identity, as well as restoring all historical traditions. All in all, the investigations show that the older generation was happy to have the communist system, as they only saw the good sides, such as the provision of housing, employment, and salaries, rather than the dark activities carried out by the Soviet Union.